Hello, welcome back. How are you? If you're new here, my name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And everybody needs a little sappiness in their life every once in a while. And tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite honeypots of sap. And that is 2011's retelling in a yuppie sort of way of Beauty and the Beast, and that is 2011's Beastly. I know, how dare you? Isn't that a chick flick? No, I'm a dude, so that makes it a dick flick. But yeah, I don't care what anybody thinks. So yeah, Beastly was written in 2000, released in 2011, directed by Daniel Barnz. It stars Alex Pettyfer as Kyle, Vanessa Hudgens, and Mary Kate Olsen. It's also got my baby. He plays Robbie in Scream 4, and he plays in Jericho as well. Erik Knudsen, he plays Trey in this as one of Kyle's stuck-up friends. But yeah, I know it's a little sappy in parts, and it's a love story, and but I like the whole idea of it, and like I said, I don't have to be, I don't have to be like screaming in blood and terror all the time. I can like a little bit of sappiness, and this is a fantastic sappy movie to me. It just all really works perfectly to me, everything about it. Um, I wish we could get an adult rated R, you know, with a little bit of coolness in it, but I really love this. So let's get down to it. The movie opens with Alex Pettyfer as Kyle. Kyle is running for class president in his snooty school with him and his snooty pals. And anybody who's been to high school and all, we all know these little cliques and how it all works. And yeah, so there you go. So Kyle is running for class president, and we kind of get to see most of the main cast in this little intro. And that is, he's giving his little speech about why he should be president of the class, and he's kind of like, pretty much saying it right out that. And what's interesting about it is as dickish as his speech is, it's true. The speech that he gives is true. And basically, he's just sitting up there, why would you vote for me? I don't really care about any of this stuff. I don't care about the planet. I don't care about anything. I'm just pretty and rich with a famous newscast dad. So that's all I've got to offer. But that's what matters in this world. That's all that matters in this world. Pretty people get it all, and ugly people get nothing. And he's saying that to the crowd. And he's like, so should you vote for me as class president when that's all I've got to offer? Of course you should, because that's the way things work. I'm beautiful, I'm rich, and my dad's famous. That's all you need. Now, in the crowds, we see his little friends. We see Trey and his girlfriend, or Kyle's girlfriend. We see Lindy, who is kind of like, you know, she's going to be the love interest of this movie. So you get introduced to her standing over there. She writes for the school newspaper. So she's shaking her head at his ridiculous speech, even though it's true. And then you get to see one of the biggest surprises of this movie, to me, for me. Now, all of those weird shows, Full House and fucking Friends, and there's that other one, and I hate it so bad I can't even think of the name of it. It's the black-haired girl and those two guys. I think they're gay. I cannot think of the name, and I'm gay, so I should love it. But I absolutely hated that show, and so all of those kind of shows. So I hated Full House. I don't care about any of that kind of crap. I hate that stuff. So I don't know jack about the Olsen twins, but Mary Kate Olsen is one of the best characters that I've ever seen in a movie. Dark, witchy character. She plays Kendra in this movie. She is a powerful practicing witch, so this is sort of a fantasy movie. And I love everything about Mary Kate Olsen in this fucking movie. The way she dresses, the tats on her face, the way she carries herself, the way she talks, I mean, it's perfect. The character of Kendra is one of the biggest draws in this movie to me because I absolutely love it. I love all the characters. I like Kyle. I like to hate Kyle, and then I like to love Kyle. It's got Trey in it. It's got Will, the tutor, which we'll talk about. Neil Patrick Harris plays the blind tutor. So I love the cast in this movie, and I love the people in it. And yeah, so let's get to it. So he's running for class president. He gives the speech. You can see Kendra in the movie, because he looks directly at some people and makes fun of them, bullies them, and she looks at them and she looks back at him, and the look on her face is just tells you everything you need to know about the character of Kendra in this movie. So she walks out and he walks out when it's over, the speech is over, and she has drawn all over his posters out there, and they have their little back and forth. He hates her and she hates him, and because she knows what he is, and she's disgusted by what he is. So, you get to see him go home that night with his wonderful speech, and his dad, they are rich, they live in a very fancy condo, and yet his dad, treats him like a piece of furniture. I mean, he is so disconnected. He is as self-absorbed as he is, so you can see the apple doesn't fall far, yet it bothers him how distant his dad is. So you have him being ignored by his dad. Obviously, you see where his shit comes from, his behavior comes from. So the next day he wins, and he's all giggly about that, and Kendra is in the hallway, and he runs across Kendra and is going, so sorry that I'm the president, I guess you're really angry. And she's like, no, I figured, the people aren't going to do the right thing. And he's like, well, I just want to apologize for, all of our little tete-a-tetes that we have, and I want you to invite you to the after party. And she's like, what are you talking about? What are you up to? And he's like, no, it's for real. And she's like, okay, well, I don't know what game you're playing, but I'll play, sure. And he's like, so she's like, so I'll be going with you? What about your girlfriend? Oh, she broke up with me. Oh, okay, well, alright. I don't know what game you're playing, but I'll play along. So sure, I'll be there. Because everybody deserves a second chance. But I wouldn't fuck with a witch. You know what I mean? But okay, I'll be there. So he goes on to the party, and that night there's the big party, the big class party. Invitation only. You have to have bought a ticket. But he said, told her not to buy a ticket, that he was going to have one waiting for her at the door, at the entrance. So he meets Lindy at the party again, and they kind of talk a little bit, take a picture. His girlfriend, of course, is a stuck-up bitch, and so she's not happy with the corsage that he got her. And then Kendra arrives, and when Kendra arrives, he sees her at the door, at the little entrance area, and he just starts yelling in front of everybody that he couldn't believe that she fell for that she was, stupid. And I think that, he calls her in front of everybody now. Remember, everybody's there. And so he's like saying all this, and she isn't even cracking. You know what I mean? Her mug is not cracking at all. She's just staring at him like, it's like, this is no surprise. But, he calls her a self-mutilating, tatted Frankenstein. And I was like, dude knows how to burn. You know what I mean? A self-mutilated, I guess he was talking about the facial tats. A self-mutilating, tatted Frankenstein. And he just rips her to shreds. And then she just like, look, dude, I only came to give you a second chance. And he just blows her off and starts to walk away, and she yells at him, hey Kyle, embrace the suck. And that's when she throws the spell. And that is a fantastic scene, because right then, this is the movie that introduced me to Natalia Kills. Now, Natalia Kills is a band girl, and the song Wonderland plays right then at that scene. And I can remember the first time that I heard that song, I was just like, oh, what the fuck is that? And I ran straight out and bought her album, and her debut album is like phenomenal. It's techno house, dance music, and oh my god, that song Wonderland, that whole album is phenomenal. Of course, she screwed her career up big time on one of those, The Voice type music shows. Her and her boyfriend was the judges, and they said some shit that made them like really hated. Some of the things, her behavior just ruined her career. So I think I don't know if she's put out anything else. I know she put out 2 albums that were really good, and then I haven't heard anything from her after that big scandal about that. But anyway, that's another piece of nostalgia for this movie, is that introduced me to Natalia Kills. But so he's like feeling really sick, he's sweating, he's doing all this, he's got to leave. He goes up to the roof, and Kendra is waiting for him up there, and she looks completely different than she did down there. But then she's a witch, right? And so he meets her up there, and she's like, gives him a little speech, and is basically like, you're now as ugly on the outside as you are on the inside, and you have 1 year to find someone in your current state to say I love you and mean it, to really love you in your state. And he's like, what do you mean in my state? And then he turns around, and he is this creature, tats everywhere, scars, a big scar across his face. He is now the beast, and his life is destroyed at that moment. So, page 1 gone. So you have a year to find someone to actually love you, It's the story of Beauty and the Beast, kind of. He goes home. He tells his dad. His dad takes him to a bunch of doctors. They can't figure out because no matter what they try, it stays the way it is. They can't do plastic surgery. They can't get it off. He is like this beastly. I wonder why they named it Beastly. Because he's beastly? Yeah. He is truly beastly. And so his dad ends up like moving him out of the city into an apartment, place of his own. Says he's going to stay there with him, but all he does is send their maid. And he won't return his calls or anything. He basically is abandoned. He's abandoned by his friends. He's abandoned by his dad. He is getting a taste of, what it is to be a Frankenskank, as he called Kendra. So, it's miserable, and he is really, you really, as bad as he was, you kind of like, whew, he's being taught a serious lesson. Now, so he basically lives there with the maid who, he's starting to. It doesn't take him, I think it's like 4 months. He's lived in this absolute hell of abandonment by everyone. Of course, he can't go back to school. Everybody thinks he's in rehab. Um, so, when he's actually a prisoner in his own little bungalow that his dad has shipped him off to because he's ashamed and can't stand to look at him. So, you know, get what you give, you know what I mean? So that's when Neil Patrick Harris, who is plays a blind tutor, comes in because of course he can't go to school. So the tutor comes in to try to teach him, but of course he's not interested in doing any of that. The tutor basically just lives there because it's like 4 months had passed. So the tutor basically just lives there and makes money for living there because he refuses to take any classes or anything like that. He just wallows in his self-pity. Um, he does get to go out on Halloween. Reminds me of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you know. All the monsters take off, and that was the running joke in Buffy the Vampire Slayer was that Halloween's too commercial, so all of the monsters stay at home while everybody else goes out. Whereas he gets to go out on Halloween because it's the one time that he can be seen in public without causing a disturbance of, you know, one form or another. And at this party, he meets up with Lindy again. Of course, she doesn't know who he is because he, of course, looks nothing like Kyle. Um, so she kind of talks to him, thinking that what he's wearing, or that his face and everything is a mask like everyone else. I'm gonna hit that damn microphone all through this one too. He sees Kendra in there. He begs her to help him. Please stop this. I'm sorry. I see. She's like, no, you don't. You don't. I can't. Magic can't be undone like that. Once it's done, it's done. You got to do it. Do it, man. That's all you can do. So he, after meeting Lindy at that party, begins to kind of like, you know, because she talked nice to him. He even saw his former friends making out and talking about him, like, you know, because he does. What did he? His girlfriend's name is Sloan, I think, and you know, when he sees them making out, he hollers it out, and they both jump up, and it's like that sounded like Kyle, and but it can't be. He's gone. Nobody knows where he is, and they actually talk bad about him, how glad they are for him to be gone. So he's all broke. And he ends up like starting to follow Lindsay around a little bit. I mean, he ain't got nothing else to do. And seeing what her life is like. And he, you know, then he ends up kind of finding out that her dad is a junkie and one particularly bad night, um, he is following her home, and his dad is having a fight with a couple of dealers out in the thing, and she gets knocked off the stairwell and falls on the ground, and he rescues her, gets her out of the way, then goes up there and threatens the father that she needs to come and stay with him. And the father's like, "You're a creature, and what and who?" And he's like, "She'll be safe with me. And otherwise, I'll turn this stuff over to the cops and you can deal with them." So, because the dad had killed one of the dealers, and the brother of the dealer was going to kill her in exchange. So he talked the dad into, "You bring her to stay with me for her own safety." So that's how she ended up. That's how she ended up staying with him. So her dad agrees to let her stay there, and Kyle, though, of course, can't let her know who he is. So the maid and Will and everyone, he takes on the alias of Hunter. So here this poor girl is. She's been ripped away from her life. She's staying at some strange person's home in a room. Has her room in a home of what the dad had told her was a friend of his son's place. So she's very upset, and the maid and everything is calling him Hunter now, because he can't let her know that he's Kyle, because she knew Kyle, right? So he, of course, is falling in love with her, and he's trying to win her over, and he buys her all this stuff. She's not interested in none of it because she's not materialistic, and he doesn't get that because that's all he knew. So the maid and Will are helping him, and he is really changing. He's really he's starting to care about Will. He's starting to care about the maid. He's starting to look at, he realizes what shit he was. And that's the whole point of the story. The whole point of this particular movie is to show you, that side of things. So he decides, to start doing things like he starts building a greenhouse for roses and plants on the roof, and she finally does walk in while he is out in the open, and he talks to her and stuff and invites her to take classes with him because she misses school. So she's like, "Sure, I'll do that." And then he realizes that it's time to get it over with. So he reveals himself to her. He stands up, not as Kyle, but as the creature that he is. He, stands up, reveals herself to him, and then, tells her, "Isn't this disgusting?" And she's basically such a nice person. She just says, "I've seen worse," you know. So that makes him feel better. And he ends up finishing the greenhouse, and she's very impressed with that. It's full of roses and flowers and stuff like that. And that's where things get, like I said, I understand there is some sappy in this. It is a sappy little love story. And so, aside from the fantasy elements, you do have this, especially there in the second act, you have this romantic pursuit thing. And, people are like, well, do you like that? I was like, no, I hate that shit. It's like, come on. It's like, well, whatever. Are you sure? Because let me tell you, if it was somebody after you and stalking you and wanting to help you and stuff like that, you'd probably like it. So I'm like, well, yeah, probably, okay. You know, we might not like watching stories of other people getting their white knights, but we wouldn't mind one of our own. So there you go. So yes, there is some sappiness and eye rolling on on that thing, on that aspect of things. So you get to see all of their interaction as he becomes more and more aware of his own horrible personality, and it begins to change. He does really begin to care about the maid, about Will. He ends up running into Kendra where she lives. He goes to where she lives, finds her in the alleyway, and is like begging her to please give him more time because he thinks Lindy is falling in love with him. And she's like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I can't do any of that. Once it's done, it's done. You know, I can't unwiggle my nose, if you know what I'm saying. So, if you ever watched it, that's a Bewitched reference for you. But the wiggle can't be undone. So, even at that moment, he says, that's fine, I can stay the way I am, but please help Will, and please help the maid with her kids. So, she actually pauses at that moment, and it's like, oh, so you are starting to care about other people, about things. Unfortunately, there's nothing else I can do. You just have to deal with it, and I will tell you, though, that if you succeed, if you do what I say, if you manage to make it through this, I will help them. So he continues, and he really does fall in love with Lindy, and she ends up really falling in love with him despite his appearance, which is what Beauty and the Beast is all about, right? So, um, the elephant almost makes me cry. There's ever since he was a little kid, because of his abandonment issues and the distancing of his father, um, he has this movie that always makes him know what real love is, and it's called, I call it the Elephant Movie. And it's a movie in which this mother elephant's baby dies. And, they have their migration route. And when it comes back the next year, she comes back looking for her baby, the young calf. Is that what they call baby elephants? Calves? I don't know. I'm gonna have to Google that. But she comes all the way back around the next year and actually looks until she finds her baby's bones and touches them with her trunk and rubs them and plays with them. And that part always makes me want to cry. I'm like, and anyway, he had took her and showed her that movie because that was his biggest secret, was to watch that movie to know what real parental love was like, because he never knew it. So that will soften you up, wouldn't it? So he ends up like taking her to the beach, to their lake house, but her father ODs. She gets a phone call right about that, because you remember, someone has to really love him, and he thinks that he's there because there's this really cool tattoo of a tree on his arm that Kendra put there when she the spell. And the tree changes, it blooms and changes colors with the seasons. And when it comes back to that year, he will be that way permanently forever if he doesn't get this done. So he really has changed. Lindy is falling in love with him. And you think that the beach house is going to be a place that it could happen. And instead, her dad dies. Her dad ODs, and she's got to go back to the hospital, go back to town. So there's a missed opportunity. Now, when he takes her to the train station, and this is where a problem for them happens, Kendra said someone has to say it. So even if she felt it, if she doesn't say it, it doesn't count. So when he takes her back to the train to send her back to town, because her dad has OD'd, he had handed her a long letter that he had written where he declares his love for her. And he misunderstands something that she says. And that's when she gets on the train and, he kind of tells her to be careful and that he will be waiting for her. He doesn't say I love you, but she turns to him, and you think that that's what she's about to say, and instead she says, "You're a very good friend." Now this makes him think that she only thinks of him as a friend, but actually she was just saying it. It was just the words that she chose at the time. It didn't mean anything. Trying to get somebody without prompting to say the exact words you want to hear in an exact situation with your time running out, can I guess put you on edge. So he starts yelling at her, "Don't read the letter, don't read the letter." And she reads the letter, though, the one where he declares his love for her, that he thinks he's falling in love with her and stuff like that. So, but because she used the wrong words and hurt his little feelings, he did not, he wouldn't speak to her. So she's calling him, going, "You wrote this wonderful letter saying that you love me and I want to talk to you about it. I want to talk to you." And you're like, "Dude, you need to talk to her because she really needs to say it before you end up looking like this freak for the rest of your life, yeah?" But he doesn't, so he don't told her. So she's going to leave to Moja Picchu with her school because he won't speak to her. So she goes back to school and she thinks he doesn't like her now or something, and the maid and the tutor, they tell him, "You're being really stupid. You don't know that that's not what she meant when she said that. You need to go and find out for sure, otherwise you're going to be this thing." Because they're the only two that know. They know what happened to him, and they believe it. Of course they do. They're there. So he goes to the school in front of everybody and walks in. You can imagine the looks that he's getting. You just go to Google and look up what he looked like as the Beast, and you'll see fantastic makeup that they used. I really like, that, other than some furry bear like the other adaptations have been. So he goes to school in front of everybody and tells her why he wasn't speaking to her, that he thought that, she was just thinking of him as a friend, and that hurt his feelings, and that he, loved her. And he didn't think that she could possibly love him looking the way that he does, but he knew that was wrong because she wasn't the type of person that, that would judge him based solely on his looks. So he apologized for that, and then she's, but he told her, "Go with your class because, to the trip because you've been waiting for it." So he was basically resigning himself to let her go to her dream trip and resigning himself to live as this creature. And the happy ending, of course, is that right before she walks out the door, she turns around and she says, "I love you." And then she walked on through the door, and he felt this weird feeling, of course, and he walks outside, and you can see Kendra is across the street, and he does a smaller version of what happened when the spell was put on him, and the spell was removed, and there he is standing there normally again. Damn cute too. And Right about that time, though, Lindy comes running out on the phone with her phone looking for Hunter because he supposedly just walked out, right? And then she sees Kyle and she's like, "Oh, hey, Kyle, I don't know. Where the hell have you been? What happened to you? Yeah, yeah, I'll listen to it. And he's like trying to stop her, like, going, "Hey, do you think love can change a person? Yeah, I do. What does this have to do with anything? I'm looking for somebody." So he's trying to stop her, and that's a cute scene, because he's like, you know, he's like, well, what if I told you that that was true? Do you believe that people can be cursed? And, what if I told you that was true? And she's like kind of ignoring him, like trying to find Hunter, which shows that she really did love him, because she liked Kyle when back then, but now she was in love with Hunter. So he's standing there talking to her, and she had picked up her phone and had dialed Hunter's number. And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I'll talk to you in a second." And then the ringing is in his jacket. And it hits her what he's saying, what he had just said about being cursed and love changing a person and stuff. And it hit her that, oh, fuck. Something. I mean, what would you do? I don't know. It's cool. That's why they call them fantasy pictures, right? Because it's a fantasy. So you don't know exactly what you would do, right? Till it happens. But I know it's cheesy. Shut up. So now that we have the happy ending, um, the woman gets a letter with her kids' green cards so she can get her kids back. They can come over to her. And Will, the blind tutor, is looking at the cards as his sight comes back and into focus. And Kendra forgave Kyle, taught him a lesson, and kept her word. She made Will be able to see again, and she got the kids back. And that's where the movie ends, except you get to see his dad in the office, and his secretary comes in and tells the dad that his new intern is on the way up in the elevator. And you hear the dad saying these crude things like, well, as long as she's not a fatty cakes, and as long as she's not, as long as she's easy on the eyes and stuff like that. And the secretary's like, well, actually, she looks a little unusual, she looks a little unusual, but her resume says she can handle anything you can throw at her. She can work magic. And then the elevator opens, and you see Kendra. You can see Kendra's signature shoes that she's wore through the movie. And that's where the movie ends, and there you have it. So it's a very cool modern day adaptation of Beauty and the Beast. I really love the soundtrack of this movie, especially the song Vanity and the song Wonderland by Natalia Kills. And there's lots of other good songs in this soundtrack. And I know that that it's one of those little cheesy movies with the love element to it. But I do think it has a really good message, and I think Amanda Hudgens and Alex Pettyfer is fantastic in these roles. I really, really liked him in this role, and I can't say Mary-Kate Olsen as Kendra steals every scene that she is in this movie. She is like the perfect version of a goth Stevie Nicks, perfect. Everything about Mary-Kate Olsen's portrayal of this character is perfect. I don't know why she didn't do then they got more money than God, right? So She doesn't have to do anything, but she was a fantastic, you know, character in this movie. So that's all I know about her. But yeah, 2011, Beastly, the modern retelling of of Beauty and the Beast. I really, really love this movie. It's one of my little guilty pleasures. Everybody has them. I can't watch hack 'em slash 'em all the time. So, yeah, I do really love this movie. And wanted to do a video on it and express my love for it and urge you to give it a chance. Yes, I know. Sappy love story, but sure, it's alright. You'll be okay. I swear, you don't need to be completely, you know. And besides, you probably like Friends or Full House, right? And I would rather watch cats screw in a paper bag for 6 hours than have to watch an episode of Friends. So there we go. But yeah, I really love this movie, and if you haven't ever seen it, you really should give it a try. It's a great little love story, while at the same time being also a very hip, modern, cool little fantasy thing. You know, I mean, there's lots of fantasy fuel in this movie. You know, I enjoy having my own little mental scenarios about it. Imaginations fuel is what these kind of movies are. So yeah, loved it. Loved it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Not a bit ashamed that I love Beastly. And could I have fallen in love with Beastly? Yeah, but then again, I could have fallen in love with Powder too. If you've ever seen that movie Powder, kind of reminds me of that. Love is never ugly. That's what That's what the tagline of this is. Love is never ugly. So yeah, I don't know. At first, when you first see him and what he was, you're like, oh, don't know about that. Didn't mess you up anywhere else, did it? But you get used to him, you know. And I think that's what you have to do is, you know, not everything is about looks. Sometimes they can suck you in with personality. But yeah. Thanks for joining me and listening to me gab. And I will see you in the next video, whatever I choose to watch or listen to when I can see. I mean, I literally have a hard time seeing my screen. I put allergy drops, all kinds of stuff, and I still can't hardly see. I hate the winter, but I will see you in the next video. Love you, miss you, bye. Remember, you're always a very special person, just like Beastly. You're the only one of you, and no matter what anybody is saying or doing to you, or what the world is doing to you, be very proud of yourself. You are the only one of you. Live it, love it, show it. And I will see you in the next one. Love you, miss you, bye. Remember, stay scary and keep screaming.